Hello and welcome to Cinema Savvy, and welcome to the end. The final episode of Series 7 of Game of Thrones has taken place, and we are all here from the podcast to discuss it. My name is Tayson Yawa. I'm joined today with George Aldridge, Chris Garner, and we are obviously, we're hyped for the next series, the 2-year wait. That's going to be fun. That's going to completely leave a hole in my life. We also enjoyed this series so far. Which I think was a good series. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but
we'll
who
discuss
knows?
that
We'll have to discuss that.
Yes,
definitely. But anyway,
first off, I need some clarification.
Yes.
Last week I said that we'd be going live Monday. I guess technically now for us in the UK it's Wednesday. So apologies about that. We kind of had a screw up with the times. Nevertheless, we are here to discuss the finale of Game of Thrones Series 7. Did you really think we'd leave you hanging? Of course, we'd give you a review for this one. But apologies for the lateness of this one.
But anyway, so we're going to move on to the questions from last week's episode, which I'm not going to lie, I've completely forgotten. So I'm going to pass you over to Chris.
Okay.
Who has them, apparently.
We only have really one answer.
What was the question? Because I don't actually know it.
One of them was about the Game of Thrones Olympic team. I know that.
Yes. Question 1 was based on the Night King's javelin throwing. Of course, he gets gold medal at the Olympics for javelin throwing. Which other characters would qualify in which other events?
Can I have a go?
Yeah.
Go for it.
Gendry at the 1500 meters.
Yeah.
Robert Baratheon at shot put.
Mm-hmm.
Not Hammer.
Oh, it was too easy, but I could really pitch from swinging. I could just pitch from throwing. Oh shit! And Ramsay Bolton at archery.
Mm-hmm. Well,
that'd be my main three.
I don't know. I take Bronn at archery actually.
We've already got one taken for archery here. So we had
the mountain for hammer throw.
Yes. Yeah. Or weightlifting when we see
wrestling
that ox in this episode. So we had a comment from Multiple Man 78. He said he'd have Oberyn Martell for fencing, and he put, on the Brotherhood without banners guy from Series 3 would win Olympic gold in archery. Yes, he was the one who never kind of showed up again after Series 3. I don't know if he died. I can't even remember. And
isn't he the one that pointed it at the Hound and he said, in season 6, doesn't someone point the bow at the Hound at the end of the episode? Put it down your pussy or something like that.
Yeah. And question 2 was just general speculation for the finale. Multiple Man 78 again said, the meeting is going to go ahead with everyone behaving themselves at the big powwow until Euron Greyjoy comes charging in, unaware of what is happening, and sets off a massive chain of events and chaos. He's partially right in some respects, but also very incorrect in other ones. That was all speculation. We also had a lot of comments from Claudia. I can't possibly read them all out because there's literally 10 comments, but she was voicing her problems with episode 6. She really didn't like it, and I think there's a few speculations in there for the finale. But the finale is all said and done now. We've watched it, and I think we may as well jump into it because this is probably going to be a long episode.
Yes, it will. So let's start off with clearing up a little bit of confusion, I would say, because there was a small debate on the podcast yesterday when we were starting to discuss this episode. At the very start of the episode, you see Dany's forces, the Unsullied, and the Dothraki surrounding a castle of some description. Now, I immediately looked at the background whilst I was watching it live, and I saw King's Landing. However, there was a little bit of confusion, a little bit of debate on whether it was King's Landing or not, and what they were doing there. How did they get there? Why were they there?
I was really confused by this opening scene, and I've actually seen the episode twice now, and I still stand to reason that this is a really pointless opening scene. I didn't see King's Landing in the background the first time I watched it, and I think that they really fucked up the geography of where they shot this one. Mostly because I think the last time we saw Greyjoy, they took Casterly Rock, and then they found out they were surrounded by Lannister forces.
Greyjoy, Chris. Grey Worm.
Sorry? Grey Worm. Sorry.
Grey Worm.
Sorry. Grey Worm, they took Casterly Rock. They were surrounded by Lannister forces. You had the Greyjoy fleet. I can correctly say Greyjoy this time. Were on the coast, and they basically had them pinned there. And that was the last time we saw Grey Worm. So when we're introduced to him here with a seemingly very similar looking castle, Lannister forces there looked like they're gearing up for an assault. I just immediately went, right, we're back at Casterly Rock here. The Lannisters are about to take on the Dothraki and the Unsullied. And then we cut back to King's Landing, and Jaime's there in the background, and Bronn's there, And I was like, they've teleported halfway across the map. Did they fight? Did they win? Is Grey Worm dead? Like, what happened? And then apparently it was King's Landing. It was sort of like on the border. It was the wall at the edge, but we'd never seen King's Landing like this before. Usually we see the densely populated city. So that kind of threw me for a second there. So I don't quite know how Grey Worm got out of the situation he found himself in.
The situation they were in was they were surrounded on the coastal side of Castle Rock. So they couldn't get out by sea, which they were originally planning, which they turned up in. So they would have to trek across the country through enemy territory with very little provisions. That was. But they were all
fine.
Well, the way I saw it is once the truce was called, Euron's at the meeting, so Euron would have left the fleet, and they would have just gone off normally to, go to meet at King's Landing. That's what I thought.
Anticlimactic from how Castle Rock was gearing up, but.
I wouldn't say geared up. I said it got montage and they just left it.
Yeah, they forgot about that plot line, I think.
But anyway,
we talked about like Missandei trying to get back to Grey Worm and like this whole thing, and it was one.
We didn't actually see Missandei in this episode, which was
she was in the. I think she
she was at the Dragon Pit. She was at the Dragon Pit with them.
She didn't have a single word of dialogue.
I think she did. I think you hear her in the background, but that's about it. There's a lot of characters that you only see in the background in this.
I don't mind. We had all the other good actors there.
Yes, we did. Anyway, talking of good actors, Cersei Lannister. She speaks to Jaime and she speaks to the Mountain, although the Mountain doesn't really speak back, saying, plotting the course for who she kills. Now, I can't remember who she says first, but does she say Daenerys first, then Tyrion?
Doesn't she say like the white-haired bastard? Or no, didn't she just like psych them all off?
The white-haired bitch first, then
the bastard,
then my brother. Yeah. So obviously she still holds Tyrion quite highly if he isn't the first on the list to be killed. We'll talk about that maybe a little bit later on in this episode. Then we finally get into the main kind of course of this episode. People are meeting up together in this one place, the Dragon Pit, to unite the Seven, as is many shows. But we also have this opportunity to reunite some characters who have been away from each other for a certain period of time. Some which are friends, some which were enemies. The first reunion we really get is Pod and Tyrion, which I thought was quite a nice reunion, seeing as Pod always looked up to Tyrion being his squire. And now they're kind of reunited in different circumstances. It's very interesting.
It was kind of reminded me of last week on the wall, except rather than instructions, it was sort of bringing them back together, and it felt very natural. The conversations, and I can imagine a lot of the cast probably haven't been on set with each other as well for such a long amount of time, so there's probably a bit of not reality in there, but a kind of we're back together. And I think as a build-up for the pit scene, it was just like last week. It was just nice getting interactions. It's this kind of things you need to show.
Yeah.
We have. Oh wait, Chris, do you want to say anything on that? Or?
I was going to say it's probably one of the nicest friendships Tyrion and Podrick's character out of all of Game of Thrones. So it was just seeing them back together again. It's just great seeing them there, and it's the same with Bronn and Tyrion as well. They kind of have that bickering back and forth, and then the last thing they say is, "I'm glad you're alive."
Miss you.
You too, and that's perfect.
But with the problem with Bronn and Tyrion, it's not a problem. When we had the sneaking into the dungeon thing the couple episodes ago, I was kind of there like, well, why haven't we actually seen Bronn and Tyrion reunited? But I guess they didn't want to do the same scene twice in the series, and it made better story sense in this episode rather than last time. It had to be snuck in and out. So rather than having them in the meeting, it gave them time for it. Which, looking back, is like, okay, now I understand why I can kind of get around that a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've seen, even though, we've seen a little bit of Bronn this series, but I think we've seen probably most of the character development from this character happen in this series. At the very, very start of this series, you see this character as a person who's only in it for the gold. He's obviously working for the Lannisters for the time being because they're the ones who can supply the gold and stuff like that. So his loyalty lies on the gold. In the 4th episode of the series, there's a shot where Bronn is knocked to the ground and his bag of money is split out onto the floor, and he walks away from it. Whether that's by choice or whether that's just framing of the actual scene or not, this was very symbolical, I would say, to the character. Especially, I'd say, no, it's more the fact that in this episode, Tyrion says, "I will pay you double whatever they're paying you, and Bronn still refuses it. I think his loyalties are now kind of set.
I don't think he
In the sense
refused
that
it, does
he
he?
No, I thought it was just a little throwback.
Yeah, I thought he says, like, you're not in an opportunity where you can even pay me now anyway, so that's not going to cut it now.
I still think that Bronn resides more in Jaime. Maybe not Cersei, definitely not Cersei, but he resides more in Jaime than he does in Tyrion at this present moment in time, and his loyalties would be more towards Jaime than towards Tyrion.
I guess it's because it's still pretty fresh, isn't it, after the dragon attack? So probably. I think he still has respect for Tyrion, but then again, Tyrion has kind of essentially defected from an alliance that Bronn's had for quite some time now, pretty much from Series 1 with the Lannisters. I don't know. I think he still likes him. It depends. We'll talk about Series 8 in another discussion, but it'll be interesting to see where his loyalties do eventually
Possibly
lie.
My second favorite reunion from the episode was the Hound and Brienne bonding over Arya Stark, and also the fact that they tried to murder each other. I'm not going to lie, Chris, but given the events at the end of this episode, I kind of ship this. See these guys kind of working out.
I'm more in the Jaime Brienne camp, in all honesty.
I'm in the Tormund Brienne camp. Whether
Fair enough.
I don't know.
My God, we have a love pentagon.
What I loved of this scene is it. Like I said, I think it was the comparison last week when Tormund was talking about Brienne of Tarth to Hound. It was funny, and then they kind of reunited like an "oh shit, he's alive" moment. And what I loved is just the little Arya smile. He's like, "Well, why aren't you defending her?" Because he obviously does care for her. No matter what he says, he cares. Just goes, the only thing he's defending is who's in front of her, and he just does that little smirk, and you're there like, you know, he deep down he's loving it. But I wish he would have brought up, you know, I met your mad ginger friend, or if he'd have just met, considering he's just gone from the wall with a guy that says he's going to have babies with her to seeing her, you would have thought that he might have vaguely mentioned it to her as well. But it's just seeing all the interactions. They're always great, even before their fight when they tried to kill each other. Even when they were sort of bickering over Arya, and he's like, you know, there is no fucking safety. They're always great together, but it was kind of like deep down, they're both probably happy that they're both alive as well.
Yeah, definitely.
And I mean, it kind of essentially was like a father figure to her. Like after Ned Stark, like he was keeping her safe, trekking across there, and even though she left him for dead, you can tell he still always had that attachment to her. And it was like the subtleties in the actor, because I mean, he's a great actor, but he has kind of been chalked up to just, you know, cursing this series and just getting some funny quips in there. But this was where we got to see like the heart of some humanity to him, and also a big moment that comes up later on, which is alluding to an event which will happen without a question of a doubt next series.
We have one thing to talk about before then, and that's maybe a little bit of behind the scenes stuff. Bronn and Pod leave the party early. There is a reason for this. Do you guys know what that reason is? Because
I think it was that they had too many actors on screen.
Oh
no.
In real life, I believe that Lena Headey and is it Jerome Flint or something who plays Bronn? They realized him in the 90s, and it ended badly. And by ended badly, they couldn't be in any scenes together in Game of Thrones. I didn't think of that until you said it 10 seconds ago. But I thought it was more that something was going to kick off in this scene. But I don't think they were needed for that scene. They aren't of importance of hierarchy. No. They are more so just there for fun. And it was just, you know, nice they went out for a drink together.
I'm pretty sure Bronn just wanted to know Pod's secret.
Still. The burning question at the end of Game of Thrones, which will never be answered.
I bet it is fermented crab meat. I bet it's fermented crab meat. But anyway. Anyway, we then have the biggest thing to happen in this entire episode. Get your air horns ready, because Clegane Bowl had its face-off. This was kind of like the first press conference for Clegane Bowl to actually take place. The Hound just kind of walks up straight in front of the mountain, looks him in the eyes and says, "Do you remember me?" And from that moment on, you're just kind of sat there watching one character just say nothing at all, and one character basically say, "You will remember you're on my watch list." And my God, I cannot wait for Clegane Bowl whenever
it was like the press conference of McGregor versus Mayweather, but the Hound's not a cunt like McGregor. It was seeing that. One thing that I will say, I absolutely love the Mountain's new armor. However, I don't like that they made like, oh, he's got this sick black armor. So what do? We open his eyes. really weird seeing again in the zombie version. I get they needed to show that he's still partially human inside of there because you kind of do forget. But the build, I think I went on record before saying we'll get Game Boy into the series, but it's going to happen next year. And when it happens, it's just going to be like fucking unreal.
Is it going to be like an entire episode dedicated to it?
No,
it will probably be one of the first. I mean, we'll get to it later, but it'll probably be the first time where the Lannisters face off against the Targaryen forces or the Alliance, whatever. And I reckon they'll be just going for each other, and it'll be an insane fucking battle.
I just want to be a moment where Bran basically says, "Oh, and Jon isn't actually the heir to the throne; it's actually the Clegane bloodline," and then
have we lost a tape?
Oh, it sounded like Detroit there for a second. Like, what's going on?
Whoa, did you lose me for a second?
Yeah,
I don't even know if whether you heard what I said. Basically, the Clegane blood is the royal blood in the bloodline of Game of Thrones. Bran reveals it, and then it's these two basically slugging it out.
I just want that fight to be like the Anakin Obi-Wan fight from Revenge of the Sith with the line, "You were my brother, Gregor. I loved you," or something like that.
My brother, Sandor.
You guys pretty much, I don't know if it was you, George, as well, but definitely Tate, you thought Clegane Bowl was happening this episode, especially with it being 80 minutes. When you heard this line dropped this earlier in the episode, did you think we were going to get it, especially because it was set in essentially like a gladiator pit?
Yes.
Yeah, especially linking it up with the whole promo where you see the Hound take the sword out. Now we know that was because the White was coming back towards him to come and fight him.
I just love every time the Hound's on screen. Like, there's just and there is no one he interacts badly with. It's not like an Olenna, like a Tywin where they grasp the scene of their dialogue. The Hound just works with anyone and everyone, and whether that's just his voice or his attitude. Even when that Lannister soldier went up to him and says, "What's in the box?" and he just says, like, "Fuck off." Like, there's just I can't wait for more of him. But I love the fact that he's back. I mean, it was great seeing him in season 3 and 4 of Arya. That stuff was awesome. Obviously we didn't have season 5. Season 6 was obviously that return, but it's nice to see him back, and not in King's Landing, but essentially in an army of some sort that he will be fighting next year. He will be fighting. And I can't wait to see, because we are going to get Clegane Bowl. And I'm assuming that the Mountain can't do anything unless Cersei tells him, so it will be something major that steps up in that happening.
With the new armor as well, because I mean, Cersei's kind of been rocking that black dress from the season finale of season 6. Now that's kind of her moniker now, and I like how she's got her forces kind of decked out like that. With Gregor though in the black armor, he's really got like a Vader vibe with me now, especially from like A New Hope, where he's kind of the hired man, like the henchman, like taking care of business. I don't know. I do love the new armor though. I thought that was fantastic, and I couldn't remember if he's been in that new armor all of this season, and I only just noticed it in this one.
No, I think he has.
No,
I noticed
he's been in gold
that armor.
He's been in the gold armor. Even at the opening scene, he was in gold armor, and then it was black when he walked out with. It's like, it's when they just unveil the new merchandise, but it's just him coming out with her. It's a squad of Death Troopers.
By the new Gregor black armor pop.
I texted my friend that as soon as we watched it, because I think just very quickly. They did like the mountain pop, then they did the exclusive mountain, like with the covering his hat pop. And I was like, yeah, they're going to do a black suited mountain pop, aren't they? Of course they will.
But anyway, we then have Euron try and make his mark on the conversation by basically telling Theon, "I have your sister. I am going to kill her," in the kind of Euro trash way that he does it.
He sparred off with Tyrion, and it was fucking great.
Short jokes. I love them.
That's the thing. Like, he doesn't give a fuck if you've got no hands, if you're half the size of a man, if you've got no dick, and if you're his nephew. He will find you and he will mock you.
Here's the problem, though. The Clegane Bowl, everyone was just like, "Oh, we're going to let this play out. We're going to let this happen." Everyone just asked Euron immediately, "Yeah, sit down, mate."
And then he goes on that whole spiel that's like the voiceover at the beginning of 300. Like, if they were sickly or misshapen, they would have been discarded. I just love his swagger, and especially because like me and you, George, like we met him in person, like knowing how he is in real life, like he is exactly how you see him on screen. He is that character. Not sure if he hates midgets in real life. Oh god, I can't say that, can I? Not sure if he hates I did it again. Move on.
Moving on. There is a very nice moment of silence, and I would say this moment of silence was used for characters to basically stare each other out. We have a staring triangle between Brienne, Jaime, and Cersei. I believe a stare is sent Jon's way and kind of towards the Daenerys camp.
For all of this, we had the most intimidating Cersei stare of 7 seasons, which was when she walked past Tyrion. She just glared at him, and like I was there, like, "Run, bitch, run!" Like he was just there, like, "Oh fuck!" Like she is not a happy woman.
We all know my undying.
We then have
Cersei Lannister, and I know obviously Dany's got to have a fucking like dramatic entrance, hasn't she? Like, of course that had to happen. This is skipping ahead to just after she arrived, but I love the line that Cersei had where she was like, "We've been waiting for quite some time. Like this is, I've taken this time out of my busy schedule to entertain you lot, and you just showed up late. Thanks for that." Very unprofessional of Dany, I thought, in that moment.
In all honesty, like, does she actually rule? Like, I don't think she. I think is she a worse queen than Robert Baratheon? I can't imagine her sitting down and like setting any policies for a country.
Well, this is one thing I really wanted, because after she essentially like committed mass terrorism at the end of season 6 and caused the entire like a religious upheaval, I wanted to see like the people of King's Landing and how they've been dealing with it. Maybe she could like entertain court and deal with people's problems, or tell them to take a hike. Like I would love to have seen that this season.
But like we got
I
your
would have
one.
maybe wanted. I would have wanted to see some kind of moment of clarity, like a good decision that she makes, just to show that she isn't a completely evil character made out.
All of her decisions are great. I'm behind all of her decisions. She's completely on the money. She's the one true ruler of Westeros.
Even
She's the best
banging her
leader.
brother.
Okay, whatever.
Well, it's better than. Well, it's probably on par with banging a nephew, isn't it?
It's probably worse because it's a twin.
Yeah.
The same blood, not half.
Yeah.
Twincest, yay. So yeah, we move swiftly on to the other claimer of the throne of Westeros, riding in on her dragon. It was quite a dramatic entrance, obviously. Kind of had to be made, didn't it? Would have been quite funny if she kind of. Would have been quite funny if she literally just kind of like, have Tyrion kind of stood there with the 2 little things.
Or just like an ice javelin just came out of nowhere. It's like surprise. It's like the most Game of Thrones twist within the fucking Night King just like riding in on that scene, like haha, and then just took them all.
No. You just see the Night King just kind of stood there way off in the background in the north. You cut to a scene of him literally just stood there, just kind of like, yeah. Literally just see cuts across random places like Winterfell, the javelin going over. You see it go across the Eyrie.
Do it like an Indiana Jones overhead map thing where you just see the javelin just traveling.
And then it doesn't even hit the dragon, it just hits Dany. It's just like, Cersei's like, well, war's over. Cool, awesome. But anyway, she makes her entrance. She obviously is told that she has arrived late. And then I wrote down here on the plan, the heroes kind of make their speeches. I'd say this was the case because all of the main good characters of the series kind of come out and say, this is about the war between the living and the war between the dead. And have that kind of spiel happening. I'd say that
they really all are.
It wasn't the best course of action. I'd say it would have been way better if instead of like going, oh, we got to fight the dead and stuff like that, if they just brought out the dead thing immediately, didn't say a single word, and then unleashed it.
They needed context. They needed context, Tate. They needed to set it up first.
You can't have all of the meat and not.
They already sent the Raven saying there is an army of the dead. It's going to kill us all.
Yeah, but they didn't believe it. It was all about. It was the fact we got Daenerys on screen with Cersei for the very first. So many characters who are meeting again. I mean, I don't think Jon Snow's seen Cersei since season 1.
Mm-hmm.
Reunions left, right, and centre with that. You needed the sparring of the dialogue before you get the White Walker bit.
They needed the mystery of what's in the box. Essentially,
well, Gwyneth Paltrow's head just rolled out of it, and there's your White Walker.
I'm not gonna lie. Was everyone else kind of a little bit scared that there was nothing in the box?
Well, this is what I know. It's like from like a TV show making perspective. Like you need that anticipation of the jump scare of the White Walker jumping out. But like the Hound nudged it, didn't he? Like he kicked it or he like tapped on the box, and then it went fucking crazy. He opened the lid. I thought that thing was going to spring out like a Jack in the Box. but it wasn't until like he kicked it out on the floor. I think that was just made for like suspense. I guess it didn't really make much sense.
Probably.
But
It looked
But anyway,
it looked amazing seeing it in the light, but just the little run and like it was just so well done because the reveal could have been boring, it could have been shit, but the way that everyone reacted to it, I was shocked that Game of Thrones actually let them. Like you'd think they'd be arrogant to this is a trick, this is X, Y, Z, but that scene was arguably one of the most important scenes of the entire 7 seasons.
do you think
I'd like to say
Daenerys and Jon like measured exactly how long the chain was so it would stop literally just short of Cersei's chain?
No, but I thought the Hound pulled it.
Oh, did he pull it? I thought it hit.
the Hound pulled it back.
Oh, okay.
Hound pulled it back.
He just wanted to let her run. He's probably hoping that it went to the mountain first. But no,
No, but the mountain's already dead. So
yeah, but then we can get White Walker Mountain twice,
And we can get a new pop as well. White Walker, Black Armor, Gregor Clegane. Buy it now. It's an all-new pop.
Game of Thrones pops.
anyway, I love the contrasting reactions between Cersei and Qyburn. Cersei's looking pretty terrified, which is kind of the first time we see her.
Qyburn's there, like, is this like my new toy for tonight? When he picked the hand up, is there like, is this my new left hand? I don't know.
I really wish that the High Sparrow was still alive and picked it up because then it'd just be like treading over Curse of the Black Pearl territory. And it'd be
Yes. No, but literally, like Qyburn, he was just buzzing, like, ooh, like this.
Qyburn, I'm not gonna lie, you could probably see his hard on from the center of King's Landing.
I really wanted to see him just like look around and like put it in his back pocket and like just keep a hold.
Oh, back pocket.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely his back pocket.
Hey,
moving on. Once that has taken place, Cersei's actually, I was surprised about this, but I'm not sure whether this was a bluff or not on her part. She said, look, I'm happy to do this cause. This is actually quite terrifying. I mean, Euron's already walked off, which we now know was a ruse. But at the same time, there is some amount of fear there. They have to fear some form of threat. And Cersei basically says, look, I'll add some soldiers to the war and stuff like that. I'll keep the peace. But Jon, you got to bend the knee to me. And Jon basically says, I've already bent the knee to Dany.
And she got wet.
Yeah.
It's been all over Twitter. Do you want to see her face afterwards?
It's just like, gosh,
I wasn't expecting that. That genuinely caught me off guard.
Like the wall in summer.
They cut to have that reason. Like, it was fucking obvious. Like, as soon as you said that, like, okay, this finale is going to get interesting. It was just right. Jon Snow, to me, he's been boring from day one. Like, yes, we wanted to know who your parent is. Now we do. Fuck off, bore
He's
off.
the paragon character. He's got to be the true, just one.
Yeah, and it was just, I'm gonna cut this speech, and there's more. I will not bend the knee. It's just that fucking accent. Just the way he just.
I'll only bend the knee to Dany. I've already tried it once. I might try it again on a boat in a bit.
He's so fucking glib. Like, I bet it has sex with one of the hottest women in Game of Thrones. I bet it's like, can you imagine his pillow talk afterwards? Like, it'd be one of the most depressing fucking days ever.
I'm his ghost. I haven't seen a full series.
Going back to Euron, though, really quickly, we do have clarification now because this was one of my biggest plot holes from episode 6, but I'm glad that he cleared it up now. He asks, can White Walkers swim? And Jon Snow says no. So when we thought they had like a whole nautical squad to like go under and attach the chains to the dragon, well, now we have our answer. There's no.
They can't swim. There's an ice dragon. There's a fucking ice dragon. If he's like, I'm going back to the Iron Islands, I'm pretty sure there's a bridge on the Iron Islands, mate. Like, that's how you killed your brother. But
that links the islands. It doesn't take you to the islands.
There's not like one massive rope bridge to Westeros.
They can swim there.
It's very rickety, you know.
The cold, as we know now, the cold follows them. So what they've got to do is walk near it and it'll start freezing. I mean, they're pretty patient guys. They waited 6 years, so no, it was. I'm happy it was a rouse because I won't lie. I was pretty disappointed of him just to walk off and be like, "Fuck it, I'm done." Like, you were better than that, mate. And thank God now he's going to like be. I hope he's basically.
It was funny because he was basically hinting, "Hey, if we both survive winter."
Yeah, he doesn't give a shit about his allegiances, doesn't he?
Oh, no, he doesn't.
But he knows what he's doing. That guy is the pirate. There's a reason he'll be king. He knows how to become king. But no one can undermine his sass.
We need to talk about the Golden Company. as well, because that was mentioned earlier and we didn't think much would come of it because we all said that, you know, as in terms of visuals, it's going to be pretty much exactly like Lord of the Rings. Apparently, it's going to be exactly like Lord of the Rings, so they make sure they name drop those elephants.
But better.
I'm not going to lie. We'll go back to the Golden Company in a second. We are skipping a very important scene, maybe the best scene in the series that we are skipping before we go and talk about the Golden Company. Negotiations break down, and Tyrion takes it upon himself to be the person who will go and basically convince Cersei. It has to happen. And basically what will happen was... Oh my god, I can't believe that joke. I'm not going to dignify myself to reading out what just got put in the Cinema Savvy chat. I'll leave that to one of the others. But anyway...
You're right about one thing,
Tyrion...
That's the setup.
Were short.
Thank you, George. There we go.
Yeah.
Had to be done.
Anyway,
yes.
Tyrion has to go negotiate with Cersei. And Jaime basically says it's suicidal going in there. He knows it's suicidal going in there. What transcribes, I have to say, is some of the best acting we've seen all series.
It's a nice throwback to the older seasons that when you had people jousting in rooms in offices behind desks with their words, and that's what this had. And just everything from, I mean, these guys, they used to drink a lot, even when they were pouring the drinks and stuff like that. I know it's jumping ahead, but it was just arguably the two best actors on Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
They're back together. They're at their best when they're with each other as well. Like, I always think that Tywin is the commanding force and Elena's the sass, but they're always one above the other. Whereas Cersei and Tyrion have always been able to backhand one another across, I guess you could say, the first 4 seasons. So seeing them back together, especially when they're essentially playing poker as well with each other, it was just great to see it, especially when, you know, Tyrion even said, do it. Like,
this was the first time, I'd say the pacing in this scene as well made it feel like it was old school Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
It made it feel like that should have been the pace the entire series was set at. That kind of low level tension that builds up slowly and slowly and slowly over to a boiling point. Instead of having the boiling point first and cooling off. Oh, the writing was phenomenal.
The writing this series has been so, for me anyway, has been really on the nose for the most part and just really easy. But this did remind me of old school Game of Thrones. And as you guys said, this was my favourite scene of the entire episode. I thought this was absolutely stunning. And that goes down to the 2 actors. Lena Headey, for example, like Cersei as a character, this series has really just been this emotionless character pretty much since the finale of season 6, where some people would say she's been inherently bad, but she's been very sort of stone-faced and stoic the entire way through. When Tyrion starts to mention about her children again, and we know that she's emotionally shut this out after Tommen has died, but we see that crack where she says, like, I don't want to hear it, and then her voice cracks and says, like, I don't want to hear it, and we hadn't really seen Cersei like that for a long time. And also the fact that she lets Tyrion live, like, that's a huge moment. Like, he basically gives her all the reasons for her to kill her.
Her one weakness is family. Whether it is Tyrion, who is the most hated member in her, she's like, this is my worst enemy, this is a member of my family, I can't kill him. And it is, comparing it to a later on scene, which we will do in a minute, in this instance, she doesn't even give the nod to Sir Gregor. She doesn't do anything. She immediately just kind of says, okay, no, I won't. And he pours himself a glass, he pours her a glass, and they continue talking. And I feel like this, I don't know, this scene obviously turns out to be Cersei kind of lying and playing out on Tyrion's behalf. But at the same time, I feel like this is probably the most vulnerable we've seen her since the High Sparrow was kind of in order.
But it's interesting as well because, I mean, she talks about, you know, we see her emotionally break down when he talks about the children. And then within the next breath, I think she says something like, I don't care about the children. Like, what I care about most is that you killing our father left us open, like, to enemies. They came in. So it's right back to power again, how she has been. I don't know if any of you thought this, but like the whole extended joke with the wine and like the long pause, it reminded me of when Tyrion's dragging that chair. I can't remember which season it was. It was either season 3 or season 4, where they're in the small council. And it's one of those like long drawn out jokes. But I thought that was really well done as well. It took a little bit of the tension away and still kept it fairly light in some moments. I did think that was a really tense moment, though. We knew that Tyrion wasn't going to die, but even with like the initial conversation with Jamie before going in, the music kicking in, and Gregor looming over him as well. I thought it was really effectively set up and paid off as well. And a very interesting ending as well, where he finds out that Cersei's now pregnant. Will that, I know this is going into speculation, which we'll do in another video, but will that make him change allegiance? Like, technically, Cersei's got another kid on the way, part of his family. He's always loved Cersei's children, with the exception of Joffrey. And he's been banging on at Daenerys about the line of succession, but now technically the Lannisters do have a line of succession.
I'm willing to say he won't switch sides as soon as he hears what Jamie will have to say. Not only that, but at the same time, the prophecy says that Cersei only ever has 3 kids. So no matter what happens...
Well, technically she's already had 4 because the baby with Baratheon.
It depends when you, like, are we going from like initial conception or actual birth?
Well,
actual birth, I'm assuming.
Well, I thought it was born. It just died of a fever or something. Wasn't like that?
No.
Was it stillborn?
I think it was stillborn. I'd have to go back to Series 1. I can't remember that.
Because there's a shit fan theory that baby is Gendry, and I just laughed. For every one interesting fan theory that turns out to be true, there's at least 100 bullshit ones and 3 just hilarious ones.
Yeah.
Oh wait, actually, no. Going really back to it was born, because she talks about going down to the crypt to look at him. The little bundle, she says. So it was born. So you know that was clearly, because I don't think that was in the book. I think that was a scene that was added. It's probably one of my favorite scenes.
Okay, if that is the case, not old enough to grow hair, maybe born bald.
I knew it. The father was ill in pain. I wondered where he'd gone off to.
I was trying to think of all the bold characters in Game of Thrones.
Well, Varys can't do it, because as we've established at the beginning of this episode, cockless people can't have families. So, I mean, that's pretty much self-explanatory. But there's a lot of cock talk at the start of this episode.
So, I'm debating in my head whether this is, like the best scene in the episode, or whether the Tyrion scene is the best scene. But we then have Cersei, obviously, okay, before we get to that scene, Cersei heads back and says, basically, I'm going to dedicate my army to you guys and stuff like that. We then cut back to Jamie planning to prepare the troops. The opposing party, shall we say, has left. And we are now left with Jamie kind of preparing the troops. And Cersei basically says, you always were the dumbest of us. I'm not going to give them anything. In fact, we're just going to prepare to attack them. I have the Golden Company. I have all of this. And this is the final straw for Jamie. And I think it perfectly completes his arc to the point of which is reasonable, because obviously the next stage is going to be killing her.
I almost cried. I won't lie during this scene. There was 2 hours sleep watching it live. I thought, oh shit, she didn't do it to Tyrion. She's not going to threaten 2 Lancers and let them both live in this.
And she gives the nod to Gregor.
When the nod and the sword comes out, I think I need to rewatch it, but I'm convinced they play the kind of not Reigns of Castamere, but you know, Cersei had a kind of theme, like it's called like Hear Me Roar on the soundtrack last year. Yeah. I'm convinced I need to rewatch it, that some music come on, and I was like, my lip just started quivering, and like I sat up straight, like don't. Like I was ready, because there hadn't been an outright shock this season yet. There hadn't been that Game of Thrones moment, and I was there like, and how close the mountain was, and then he called a bluff, and I don't think I've ever been more relieved in 7 seasons of watching it. And if I went back to season 1 to think, I'd be relieved that this guy didn't get killed. It just shows how great he is. But I won't even lie, I was shocked he still left her side. I'm shocked that he's gone north, that he's changed opposition. But I think that just opens up his character arc even more. And also, quickly, a little prelude earlier when he's speaking with Brienne, and she's like, you know, fuck honor, fuck the houses, because he's always, one of the things I think he loves about her is she is the knight he always wished he could be. She was the oath keeper. Yeah. She was, you know, honorable, all of that. And he couldn't be that. I think that's why he's respected so much. So for him to see her, like, you know, fuck honor, fuck houses, even he's there like, oh shit, like
he questions it, doesn't he? He goes like, fuck honor, like, what are you talking about? Yeah. No, I thought exactly the same as you. It's when the music kicked in and Nikolai's performance as well, like his expression, it's like all is lost. I can't believe what Cersei has become now. I thought he was going as well. The only reason I thought he wouldn't is because I still think that he will end up killing Cersei at some point, because they did allude to that from the map where they were standing on episode 1. So I thought he's got to live, he's got to make it out of it. But no, that was really great tension. And we talk about with like characters like, say, Jon and Dany, for example, we know they're not going to die. They've got plot armor on. But there's some characters there and some moments where, even though you know deep down probably they won't die, there's a lot more for their character to go on to. There's still moments like this, like Tyrion, for example, going to talk to Cersei. Very tense moment. Jaime, especially, talking to Cersei. There were moments where I was saying at the screen, like, oh, God, don't let this be the end. Because really, in terms of big character deaths, this series has been really light on that. We've only had really one major one, I would say, and then the others have kind of been very incidental. But
no, this was. I mean, I was sat there thinking this can't be the end. It just can't, and I don't know whether I was prepared. I think once again this shows Cersei being weak, and that's twice in one episode. She's isolated herself from everyone else. Like I feel like it's spelling the end for her at least.
I love her plan though. She's like, let them fight their war in the north, let them dispatch each other, like let them their forces dwindle, and then we'll just handle the rest when they come down. I love her plan. And now she's got like elephants and the Golden Company. She's got the Iron Bank. They're set.
Yeah,
like,
but the Iron Bank only backs the winner of the war. Knowing that Jaime's gone now, I don't think you've lost the command of your armies. Who do you have to command your armies anymore?
This is what I, in all honesty, before we got to the Golden Company stuff, when at the start of the series, Mark Gatiss came back and he got his money paid to him, and I thought he was going to take the money and be like, well, I'm not going to back you because she's going to destroy you. I thought we'd get something like that, but the fact the Golden Company's come out, I don't think the Iron Bank will turn on them. I just think that the Golden Company will. I don't know, but I thought they're going to get double crossed. I won't be surprised if something happened. I don't think the Golden Company are going to have the impact that they might do. Their reputation not been built up. We can't see them do much yet. And so, but the Dothraki, right? Season 1, they've had their reputation. So when you see them in battle, it's not 7 years of anticipation. It's more that we knew about them in Season 1. And that's why seeing them again, Unsullied, they built them up for episodes in Season 3 when she took them all, blah, blah, blah. They were built up. All the armies have had their build-ups and stuff over the years. And they've just took the Golden Company in. I don't think that's enough of an impact to... And I don't think... I mean, 6 episodes, yes, they're going to be long episodes, but they would literally have to start off with them, like, sacking a city or, like, annihilating an army at once to get a reputation to be a threat. I don't think they've got the time to do that, so something's going to go wrong with that, I think.
I kind of agree with that. I was going to go with, like, the Lord of the Rings comparison there again, but then again, you do see one of the Oliphants in 2 towers, so you know what's to come. But there is that moment in Return of the King where that look of horror on his face, where it then cuts to the whole line of them about to charge like impossible odds. So they could do something like that, but again, like going back to that comparison, they did set up what was to come in the second one. I do think they need some kind of setup, but I really don't know why they've cut the episodes down. Like, is it a budget thing so they can?
There's not enough storylines. Like, I know people say that they're teleporting, but I don't need half an hour of them standing still on an ice stone, like at night time.
No, but I'm not gonna lie. You don't even need that. What you need is dialogue, and I feel like this series we've just been hyping up all the scenes. But here's the thing: in Game of Thrones, filler is phenomenal. It is brilliant scenes which are brilliantly written and brilliantly directed to add to the plot. There is very little filler which doesn't actually enhance the character.
Okay.
Add to the plot.
Go back 3 years. It would take you 2 episodes to get 1 plot point for every character. You would see a character every 2 episodes. This year, there are 3 plots. There is the North. There is King's Landing. There is the Wall. There is nothing you can do to fill out the 10 episodes.
No. I'd say you also have some things in there with Arya and family and understanding the enemy.
Well, but did we need another half hour of Ed Sheeran?
No, we don't need another half hour of Ed Sheeran. I'd say episode 1. If we go back to episode 1 was decently paced.
Yeah, but
I
that was
believe
fine. But if you had Arya every episode just meeting some new soldiers, you'd be like, for fuck's sake, like this is
don't
pointless.
need that. Episode 2, she met with Nymeria. Episode 3, like Nymerian hot pie. That was suffice.
But they were.
What I'm saying is that she's really the only character who's had that kind of treatment.
I will say there's a lot of characters in this series that have been, especially now we've got to the finale, incredibly inconsequential. Arya being one of them. We'll talk about her big scene later on, but I mean, it just seems like they didn't know what to do with characters. Brienne, for example, has just been a background character. Loads of other characters as well. Theon really hasn't done anything apart from where he's now going to. It feels like a lot of characters have been in stasis, and I'm wondering if you did have more episodes that you could go back to those characters, you could flesh them out a bit more and sort of not drag it out or anything, but just pace it a bit evenly. Yes, the action's great and stuff, but maybe it would have felt even better had we have had more time to earn those and more time in between.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's just an idea.
I
mean, you could have ended one episode with them sitting on the rock. Okay, Gendry is obviously halfway through running back. They are stuck on a rock. The next episode, you could even begin it with Gendry getting to the wall, and you would know, okay, a little bit of time has passed. Instead, you have it in one sequence, and it just feels like everything's happening 20 times quicker than it should be.
But the only other storyline is, okay, they're stuck on the rock. Then what do you cut to?
You cut the episode there. You start the next episode with Gendry arriving at the wall.
But then you've had like a 30-minute episode max.
They kind of wrote themselves into the corner with them putting them on essentially like a ticking time bomb of like.
To me, like I was fine with that because they covered it. They showed nightfall, it showed morning, and to me, it covered time across well. I think they needed what's important. 7 episodes was right. They could have pushed for 8, but 8 would have been pushing. Because I think some things here were because you can't have an episode now without. I mean, we didn't get King's Landing last time. That's the penultimate one, but this season you couldn't have had an episode about Jon and Dany. They're taking the piss with that, in all honesty. Winterfell, you could have probably cut a couple of scenes as well. There isn't enough going forward, but also I guess this comes down to the fact that the books are not complete because they're not going to go and. I mean, obviously George R. R. Martin's told them what's happened, and he's told them X, Y, Z, but I don't imagine them filling the intricately placed dialogue bits because they don't have the ability.
So are you saying that there isn't enough details between minor or non-major?
There's not enough
characters?
Details, but there's not enough plot left. In Game of Thrones as a series, that when it used to have 5 or 6 different storylines in episodes across 2 episodes, you have 10 at a time. That understood it because that's how you got your 10 episodes. Season 6 had so much going on still, but they wiped out a lot of that with the high steps and all that nonsense. You know, if you look at who's gone across, we are at the ending now, and the best thing about Game of Thrones has been the middle, because the middle has actually been from the final episode of Series 1 to arguably the final episode of Series 6. When you have so many multiple stories, now it's just we've got the villain, we've got the dead, we've got ice and fire. That's all that's left, and the show's been a build up to that. And this was always going to happen as things get towards the end. There's so much less to fill. It's always what happens in the middle to build up to it. And I feel that now they're in a corner. That's why they need 6 episodes. I'd much rather they had less episodes with a longer running time to make sense for the episodes. Yeah. And I think 10 would have honestly been taking the piss. It would have been like a season 5.
I think next series the pacing is going to be on point.
Oh, it'll be perfect next season. They're taking their time as well to do it, which is the main
I feel like this series was almost like a sacrifice series, just for that cause.
Yeah, Series 6 has just been a build up to season 7. And I know that
Series 7. I
meant season 7 to build up to season 8.
Yeah,
and I think when you look back at season 8, when that finishes, season 7 may look better or worse. I think I said the same. Well, obviously we didn't do this then, but the end of season 5, I thought it was just crap. And honestly, everyone did. But looking back at season 6, there's nothing season 5 did to it to improve it, because season 6 was its own thing. Whereas season 6 building up to 7, that played it nicely, especially the finale and stuff. So they've always worked where in the future you can look back and think that season did help this. Look at season 1. Season 2 is amazing because of how well season 1 set it up as well. It's such a weird conundrum.
I still think series 4 is my favorite, but we'll move on to Dragonstone now. We'll keep the pace going on our review
of the entire episode. Theon and
Jon.
Yeah.
This was an incredible scene. I am so glad I picked Theon as my brackets person.
Hey, guess what? I believe in Alfie Allen now too.
I believe in Alfie Allen as well. No, I've always seen him as an incredible actor, and this scene perfectly outlines that. We have a scene where basically he goes to Jon, he basically says, look, I know you can't forgive me, but I've always looked up to you, basically. And I've always looked up to Ned, and they draw the comparisons there, and he's talking about whether he is a Greyjoy and using it almost in the tone of it being a dark kind of thing, even though one of the people who he respects the most in life is Yara, who isn't exactly a bad character. He says, am I a Greyjoy or am I a Stark? And Jon basically says, you are both Greyjoy and Stark.
It's
a completely understanding scene, and I just really liked how it played out.
This was the moment of clarity that Theon's always needed, pretty much, well, since Series 1, really, because even then he was torn. These are the words that he needed to hear in this moment, that he is both, he can be both, he can have allegiances to both. And, you know, we see him come into his own after this. We've seen, even when, you know, his sister tries to rescue him, even when he's trying to let her, you know, take the what is it, the Salt Throne? Is that what it's called? I forgot what it's called for a second.
Yeah, the Salt Throne.
Yeah. Even then, he still seemed very unsure of himself. Like, Yara was trying to sway him to become the Theon that he needed to be, and he just wasn't getting there. Like, he was PTSD to shit after what Ramsay had did to him. But one thing he mentions in this one as well, like, we thought when he abandoned the ship with Euron, we always said, like, he's got a plan to get her back. Like, this was a moment, like, he's got a plan. But he kind of admits in this one that he was a coward to jump off. So I don't know if that kind of cheapens that moment a little bit, because we had all these big fanciful ideas of what he was going to do. But in this episode, he kind of admits that, yeah, I was just trying to escape and flee.
It's a perfect survival technique, being coward. It isn't always seen as a negative thing. Fight or flight, that's just natural responses, and his flight response was a lot bigger than his fight response. And I'm sure that other characters, such as if the Hound was put in the situation, I know he never would be, but if he went to go and try and kill Euron in this situation, I believe that he would probably lose the person who was being held hostage.
I don't think he'd care if his brother got killed by Euron.
Oh, no, okay, no, but that was a bad character to use. I'm just saying that he's quite a headstrong character. If it was Arya and it was Sansa being held at knife point, I think if Arya actually went to go and attack, then Sansa would be dead, and Arya would probably be aggressive in mourning. I don't know whether she'd win that fight or not, probably, but at the same time, she still loses her sister. Theon at the moment isn't the best fighter. Yeah. But what he can do is, he knows in this situation, Yara is basically dead if he takes a step forward. So what can you do? I can jump off the ship, and maybe there is a slight chance that she survives. I also survive in that case. So the best course of action is to jump off the ship.
His fight technique is just going to be kick me in the balls and wait to see what happens next. Because I don't know, like, Theon is a character been up and down. If you invest in and you get bored of him, I get that's the point, but it just gets boring and repetitive. And you know, when he was saying that Jon's like, you know, you are a Stark and you are a Greyjoy, and I'm there like, well, we already knew that, because was it last season, season 4, where he said, you know, my real dad was executed in King's Landing, or he says something like that. And I'm kind of like, well, I've got this from you before, and I don't know, I just can't be asked with it. I'm not invested.
I think this scene's going to be more. I think whenever Jon gets revealed who his parentage is, a scene is going to mirror that completely. He's going to be conflicted to where his allegiances should lie.
I don't think he will be.
And Theon might turn to him and say, you are both Stark and Targaryen.
That will be cheesy as fuck, and I hope it's nothing like that. I think Jon's just going to be horrified that he's impregnated his auntie more than anything.
I want to see that toilet plunger on his face, like, you know, just thrown up in the toilet.
But the problem with the Theon as well, when you look, that okay, Theon's got 2 rowing boats to take back his sister and the control of Euron. What's Euron currently doing? Transporting the Golden Company across the seas. Good luck, Theon Greyjoy.
Well, maybe we will see a character. Yeah. We haven't seen a certain character in a long while. Dany's ex-lover, to the point where I've even forgotten his own name. Who's currently in charge of the Bay of Dragons. Dario, I think, is probably going to come back in at some point next series.
Also, Golden Company, wasn't Jorah ahead of them at once, or some hierarchy in it?
Ooh,
he did.
So that could be interesting. Yeah. What's next, people?
The last thing I'll say, like with I like the performance of Alfie Allen. That's kind of what makes it shine through with the character for me. He essentially turned into Rocky though in that fight on the beach. Like, just keep getting knocked down, just have the heart of a lion, just keep getting up every single time. I did like that moment.
Someone put on Reddit earlier today saying that he is the drowned god. Is dead completely inside from what Ramsay has done to him, and what is dead may never die.
Wasn't there a film that did it recently, which I was thinking of? They just keep beating him. He just keeps getting back. He keeps getting up, and he doesn't want to do it. There's so many films. It's so cliched.
Yeah.
But there's one that does it where he's a weakling and he just. Oh, it's Captain America.
Oh yeah,
America,
yes, yeah.
Yeah.
I did like that moment though. I thought he was going to do the whole like drowning himself and being brought back to life, but I like how after the fight's done, everyone's loaded into the boats. He walks to the water's edge and just like washes his face in the salt water. That was a kind of a really nice sort of moment. That was like embracing his Greyjoy destiny, I guess. Yeah. I don't know. Really small moment, really small character moment, but I liked it.
Yeah.
I guess
now.
Oh yeah.
Here we go. It's time. I've written down on the sheet, Dany and Jon complicate things.
Yes.
Now this is paired up with a scene that happens in Winterfell. So we'll be
can we talk about before the Dragonstone bit. When we look at Jorah's face when she says, "I will go with Jon on the boats."
Oh my! Yes.
You could just feel the hearts just being shredded. First, he took his sword, and then he took his heart.
Yeah.
That's it.
I think just like Jon was like, yes, we need to get her on a boat, a secluded boat, by the way.
This ruined my theory as well, that when they said we're going to return to Winterfell, I've said for weeks that the final episode, Jon will return to Winterfell on a fucking dragon. And like, well, we know he was fucking a dragon on the way to Winterfell, but it really, really, it would have been much cooler if he just flew down there at the end. But haha, I'm back. But no, we're just going to get an episode. So then they keep transporting everywhere and like teleporting, yet now they're on a boat to Winterfell. Like, come on. Make your mind up what you want to do.
Boat to Winterfell. That's gonna. I'm trying to think like how long that. Just get on a fucking dragon. Why not? Jon and Dany complicate things. So this is the scene. That one. Okay.
I just want to say, Kit Harington, you've been working out your ass. Good to know.
Have you been watching it? What are we studying him? Are we studying his scene of the grit to what he is now?
I want to point out. That's a question maybe for people in the comment section. Was that a stunt double or was that Kit Harington?
Tate really needs to know. Look at his eyes.
I really need to know this.
Have his pupils dilated. Dany and Jon. Hang on, right. The time has come. This is rant 1 of 2 I have for this episode. This is the most.
Okay, wait a sec. I'm gonna go to the toilet very quickly before you start your rant.
You go to the toilet and think about Kit Harington's ass. Okay.
You just got him excited, Chris.
Hey, he put it on himself. That wasn't me. I have always hated these two characters, mostly Emilia Clarke. Everyone knows that. I think I've had a rant against her every single episode of this season so far. But this relationship just doesn't feel earned at all. It kind of feels like, I'm going back to like another Middle-earth comparison here. This doesn't feel like an Arwen-Aragorn relationship. This feels like the dwarf and Evangeline Lily relationship from The Hobbit. They look at each other, there's an attraction there, and that's it. It's not skin deep. It doesn't go like into any emotions or anything like that. It's just that she's hot, he's hot, let's hook up. And that's what it feels like. And it doesn't feel like there's any kind of passion behind it. The actors really, to me, don't have much chemistry at all. And also down to the fact that Jon Snow at this point is just kind of pissed all over the memory of Ygritte. Like, he's never even mentioned her. He's never had any ties or emotional disconnect from Daenerys because of his memories with Ygritte. Yes, Tate, I am still going on this tirade at the minute. And this scene was like this scene almost made me sick to my stomach because this was the most easy cliched thing to do. And I can just imagine the hordes of fangirls out there and probably some fanboys out there as well, which are just like over the moon that this happened. But it just feels like a really easy thing for Game of Thrones to go down.
I want to point out the fact that this would have gone past George R. R. Martin. This would have been originally written.
Right, if this had been written in a book,
a relationship that would have been written well. This hasn't been written well.
But you can't. It's just a book thing. That of course it had been written well because it would have been point of view. You'd have had feelings and whatnot. But with this,
had more dialogue, you'd had more scenes shared.
that's a book.
This is just like a sort
Chris,
of
this is the
relationship
best it could have been framed.
The way I see this, and
Yeah.
this is going a lot for season 7 now. Now Game of Thrones is overtaking the book. The book readers don't like it. They're getting upset. And
No, I think this was just a poor. That it might not happen in the book. It might happen in the book. My point is that Kit Harington and Emilia Clarke haven't turned in very good performances, and especially together, there has been no just chemistry or setup for this. They're both attractive. They're both attractive, and that's it. There is no underlying emotion between the two characters.
What about Robb Stark and that nurse?
Yeah,
they talked about interests and their stakes in things, and it felt like a genuine relationship.
Their stakes.
And
no, it didn't.
John and Daenerys didn't talk about politics.
You're a book reader,
dude. Her character isn't even in the book. That character
he gets married.
No,
he gets married.
He got married.
He gets married to a character called Jane Westerling, who's a Lannister bannerman, and like we never get to know her. That's in the book. In the show, they created Talissa or whatever she was called and gave her a whole backstory. That's one thing I preferred that the show did compared to the book. But they felt that was like a genuine moment where they met each other. They talked. They had loads of scenes where they talked to each other.
I just remember her cutting someone's leg off and it turned him on. That's my memory. I feel that now it's uncharted territory. People are turning on it because it is. So that everyone's saying it's fan service because it's not in a book. Whereas something of this magnitude would have gone through the writer. He would have gone through how they're going to do it. He would have had a very big say on how that was put together.
It doesn't feel earned because this has been a relationship that's been established and come to a head within like 3 or 4 episodes.
Oh, I know that it doesn't feel earned, but it was going to happen, and I do think there were moments between them, and it was more so. It was just the cliched hero, helping with the heroine. But I'm not the biggest fan of either characters, but the relationship, like, it was just always going to happen, and that's what makes it less fulfilling. Is that it was just obvious.
And no mention of Ygritte.
I'm not bothered about Ygritte. Like most people have forgotten about her anyway. And he did a whole funeral and all that stuff. And I bet if it's
not only that, but he did say like I don't think I'll ever move on. And it's come to the situation where sure, reason for him to fall in love with this person, or in some sense be attracted to her. However, it is seen there. He shows loyalty to her. She basically saves his life. He basically saves her life. Like, in that sense, there is more than just a mutual attraction. They've had conversations with each other past politics. They've talked about the dragons. They've talked about legacy. They've talked about their own causes. She wants the throne. He just wants to protect the North. They see qualities in each other which they can be attracted to. We see that. Even though the pacing has been way off in this series, we see enough to believe it. And I'm happy enough to say that I don't agree with it, but I believe it. It works, Chris. You're being too book heavy on this one.
I'm not. This hasn't even happened in the book. How can I be book heavy?
But if it happened in the book, you'd be fine with it.
I don't even like
Yes,
Daenerys.
and that's what I'm trying to point out.
I know,
No,
but
you can't turn this onto book shit for me. You can't. No. You can't turn this onto book shit for me this time.
I have.
I would still call it cliche if it happened in the book. Of course I would. But Emilia Clarke, I hate the performances. I just don't feel anything anytime these characters are on screen together.
Well, there's a really funny Instagram video with them.
Oh, is there?
Pretending to be a dragon on a mountain. It's actually quite funny. That's the real way to Daenerys' heart, apparently.
Is this when Elena says, "Be a dragon"?
So
is this like a
the one thing to note from this scene as well is that Tyrion also, I'd say, does not agree with this. In the behind the scenes, Peter Dinklage says he's listening into what's taking place, and he's obviously thinking that this might cause some turmoil in the future. Not because he knows of the heritage or anything like that, but just because political complications with relationships, and where that might lead, where arguments might lead, stuff like that. He sees this as a very negative thing to take place. I'm sure he's happy that Dany is happy. I'm sure he's happy that Jon is happy. But in the sense of as far as political stability, this is probably the worst thing that Tyrion could have asked for, especially now that his council may be weakened by this union together.
Jon, as he did Bronn's advice of "I'll impregnate the bitch," and it looks like that's.
Well, no, because he didn't take 10 good men with him, did he? No, he didn't take 10 good men with him. So
and grappling hooks. Don't forget the grappling hooks either.
Maybe some grappling hooks. 10.
Maybe she's into some kind of bondage. Who knows? I don't know. Like maybe that turns her on. Anyway, moving on to Winterfell, shall we?
Mhm.
Are we done with Jon and Dany for the moment?
Move. Do you know what? Let's move, and we'll start slightly out of order, I guess, in Winterfell. We're going to start with Salmon Bran and the revelation of Jon's parentage, which everyone has kind of known since book 1, or at least speculated upon. Now it's kind of confirmed. Or no, not really kind of. It's fully confirmed.
Do you think Sam had to step over the dead body of Littlefinger? Like maybe they were dragging him out of the main hall, just like a smear of blood. Like Sam has to step over it to get in.
Oh, I don't think they're done with him yet. I think
Littlefinger's face will be used by the Faceless Men. That's what I'm thinking. I believe George is with that.
It won't be used to take command of the Knights of the Vale, though. Now, how we thought it would.
Oh, no. Just wait till Littlefinger meets Robin next season. That's going to be fun.
I know, but you've also got that old guy who kind of watched Littlefinger die.
Yeah, but he rejected him. What's going to happen? We're being so friends. Knights of the Vale, something's going to happen with Robin where they'll do some Littlefinger shit with Robin. They'll take the Vale, but the Vale's going to get raped by the White Walkers.
Okay. What's it? Anyway, back to Salmon Bran. Sorry. Go on, Tate.
Anyway, I would love if he did have to step over Littlefinger's body, and he just does exactly the same reaction to when he asks what Bran is, and Bran says on the Three-Eyed Raven, he just goes,
"Oh,
ooh." I don't know what that is.
Does he know who Littlefinger is?
I don't think. No, he's never seen him. Has he?
Not, no.
No.
Never met them. They never met.
Salmon Bran scene. I have more to. I do like the interaction. Like I don't know the actor who plays Sam, but his like little reactions to things were amazing. I love that. Bran's been a particularly boring character in this series, but I think that's mostly down to how the actors decided to play the whole quality of the Three-Eyed Raven. It's very deadpan and a little bit boring. The whole
That's because he's still learning.
It's because he's Jaden Smith.
He's Jaden Smith. Rhaegar and Lyanna Stark. I do like we discussed it before we went live, but I thought it was convenient how Bran is meant to be all-seeing and can see everything and knows everything, but only until Sam arrives to explain the plot.
The way
which Gilly conveniently found in a page that she was looking at in a book.
It has been explained before, but the Three-Eyed Raven, basically, if you point the Three-Eyed Raven in the right direction, he will tell you what is there, and if he searches in the right direction, he will see what is there. Bran is only really seeing what he deems as important, so he obviously went back to the Tower of Joy. He was able to gather the information from that. But at the same time, because he hasn't looked at any of the annulments or anything like that, because he didn't know where to look, now he knows where to look. Oh, High Septon, probably in this island. Okay, I'll go there at that time. I'll be able to see that. That's how he works.
But as this scene...
he may have wanted to see, okay, what were the events leading up to my father dying? He goes to King's Landing, he sees the whole Littlefinger thing.
Mm-hmm. But as he sees this happening, and of course this is sort of montaged along with the Jon and Dany love scene, so it kind of creates that just feeling of lovey-dovey.
Really well. I thought it was really well edited and stuff as well, that scene.
It's mostly that, and right, this is a book reader thing, so I will fully admit to this time. Rhaegar Targaryen is not a nice character. He's really kind of a despicable, horrible human being, especially when you sort of like break it down and how he treated Elia Martell, his wife, and ultimately how that culminated to her fate with the whole sacking of King's Landing and her rape and death and the death of her children. Was kind of all started by Rhaegar Targaryen. He is not a good guy. Also, now we find out that Jon Snow's called Aegon Targaryen. He's called Jon Snow a son that he's had in a different marriage with a different woman, the same name as his firstborn son with Elia Martell.
Dude, that means he has twice the opportunities for Azor High, obviously.
What it means is that when he got an annulment, he's like, well, he's not going to be king now, but I want an Aegon to be king, so he just called it Jon. So when he would have divorced Lyanna for Cersei, that firstborn would have probably been called Aegon the Fourth as well. But what I dig that. People don't like it, but I'm not, like I said, he's a despicable person, he's a nasty person. So why wouldn't he name his second son of his new missus the same as the one before, the one that he deep down did care for?
But my point is, like, the show.
Not only that, but
he's in that way. Like they're getting married.
The show is showing him in the nice way.
It's a flashback.
Like, it's a lovely picturesque meadow
Not
with a
only that,
stream,
but-
and it's colourful and lovey-dovey, and it's mix and match with Jon and Dany, who we're meant to feel love for. So we also do
Wasn't
with
it-
Rhaegar and
was it
Lyanna,
so-
like it's star-crossed lovers or something. That's
Yeah.
not
No.
what marriage was.
Sir Barristan Selmy in series 4, or was it series 5? The episode where he died, he basically said that he would go into the streets and sing to the people, and he wasn't always this vicious, amazing fighter, and he didn't enjoy what he did in the fighting. He'd rather go out into the streets and play music for the people. So they haven't painted him in a negative light in the show, I would say. In fact, they've painted him in an overwhelmingly positive light.
The only
Seeing as we were never given any sign that he was a bad character in the first place.
the only thing that's ever mentioned was an Oberyn quote from season 4 where he said, he left my sister. And that's the only time the show's ever mentioned that he did leave her. But obviously we'll get into that more as the seasons go on. Hopefully in the future we will find out a lot more about Rhaegar's past in terms of spin-off shows, whatever. But what I will say is that it stuck me, we spoke earlier. I just can't get over that it's either the actor of Viserys or they just got the guy that they rejected that was second choice to play him in the future with the same wig, because it was creepy more so. I know they're brothers, but they weren't twins.
Mm-hmm.
And like Rhaegar, I mean, he had the battle. What was it? The Battle of the Trident with Robert Baratheon, and his reputation is not skinny dweeb, like exactly like Viserys that got iron-headed from a little bit of metal. Like, I don't know. I was a bit let down by his appearance, and I hope that when they do stuff in the future, they don't use that actor because
they used the same one for Lyanna, didn't they? It was the same actress.
Yeah, and
then
was
again,
fine.
they had to use the flashback as well when she died in childbirth.
Yeah, like Lyanna's fine and stuff, but I just thought Rhaegar, like, that's such an important, integral backstory character. It's like the Mad King.
Yeah,
like, I guess I know who's only in for one shot, and same with Rhaegar, but you still think they'd go out and do something that, if they are planning for the future, they can then hark on to that and bring him back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was slightly, especially when we've seen all those concept arts. If you go on Google Image, you type in Rhaegar Targaryen, there's some great artwork on there. It was a little bit underwhelming, but I'm sure they'd probably recast, because Game of Thrones isn't a stranger to recasting major characters.
So let's play a game of scenarios.
Oh, okay. Let's do it.
I'm going to ask you some questions about characters, and you have to tell me the worst possible intentions that they can be involved in.
Okay, I have a problem with this, but continue.
Littlefinger, Peter Baelish, and his intentions with Sansa Stark.
Well, he's in love with her, but he just wants the power of he wants the North. He wants the North more than he wants Sansa.
I'm not going to lie, but this scene, it was very well done, because at the very, very start, you convince yourself that this will change Sansa's thoughts on Arya, but it's the final line that I believe completely wins Sansa over in the direction of what Arya's plans are, and probably speaks to Arya afterwards saying, I know what's happening here. Because it builds up as to, look, she feels like I betrayed the family and stuff like that, and what would Arya gain from that? And Sansa realizes nothing, and the only thing that would be gained would be she would be the Lady of Winterfell, but Arya has never wanted that. That's something that Arya has never wanted, but that is something that Peter's always wanted, to be kind of the leader of Winterfell. Maybe not the Lady of Winterfell, at least, but he wants to be the owner of Winterfell. He wants to basically rule the world. And it was a nice scene to parallel up against the later scene. But yeah, I feel like this was once again spelling the end for Littlefinger.
Can I chime in now? Okay, I have a problem with this.
Round number 2.
Why is Littlefinger so infatuated with taking control of the North? Why is he still
because
in
the North is, I believe, one of the second biggest army.
Okay,
all the northern banners.
It's the biggest landmass. It's the biggest landmass. In
what they always said as well is that the reason there was so much peace is because Robert Baratheon and Ned Stark, they kept the peace together because he was the one of the North.
To me, Littlefinger has been a character where, I mean, Aidan Gillen is fantastic. He's been the shining light of this series for me. It's just a character they haven't known what to do with for like a couple of seasons now. Probably from season 5 onwards, they really haven't known what to do with Littlefinger. And like Littlefinger is a character where he keeps everything close to the chest, and like he talks to Sansa about always expecting the worst in people. He doesn't even heed his own advice when it comes to this episode. Like Littlefinger is a character where he would never divulge all of his secrets. He'd never take on a protege like an apprentice kind of scenario. That would never happen. Like he'd always be a step above everyone else. He would never give away all his. It's like a magician telling their secrets. Like he never would.
I think
but he's in love with Sansa.
Problem, which is he's in love with Sansa,
but
and that is his one problem.
He is.
He's not.
That's his one weakness. He is in love with her.
Begging for his life, and I think when he is begging for his life in his final scene, and he says to Sansa,
crying.
"I love you. I love you."
That was an act of desperation because he just wanted.
No,
to
he loves her. Even Sophie Turner has tweeted today. Basically the same thing. Littlefinger's plan since Series 5, it's always been he sold her over to the Boltons, right? Knowing how they would treat her, knowing that is his opportunity to come in and save her and to have that attachment to her to be the key to getting the North. No, that's a bonus. Yeah, but that's that. But he has been in love with her. There's a reason he could have died many times. If he wasn't in love with her, he could have took the Knights of the Vale without Sansa being alive because he would have been with that nutcase woman still. I don't think he
he was in love with her at all. I think this was when we see him sort of like crying and groveling. That is an act of desperation. He doesn't open with the thing that I love you. That is just sort of like I've tried every single tactic. I've like pled for, to take me back safely to the Eyrie. I've tried to get out of all these situations, and then it's only when he sort of like really petulantly says like, "Oh, I love you, Sansa. Like, don't kill me. Like I've always loved." That's not love. That's him just trying every tactic he has. Just
this was love.
That's him confessing and saying his darkest secret in front of everyone.
It is
like
his one weakness.
When he kisses her, when he kisses her at the Vale, it's not like as a kiss of love. He kissed her there just so that Lysa would have seen him, which led to everything else. Every single opportunity he has done has been for his own end, not out of love for anyone.
But she is his weakness. Yes, it's been at his own end, but she has been his weakness for the story arc.
Yeah, there are other ways of displaying power, and that is the way that he chose. And even though he's put her in some dangerous situations, he has had undoubtedly any amount of loyalty towards her and her alone. The only times where it's come across is where he stepped onto his own cause.
I guess this is ultimately how you interpret the scenes, which is fair enough. Like, if you have different interpretations, that's fair enough. To me, he never loved her. It was always out for his own game, which made it really frustrating to me when he did make all of these mistakes. There was a moment this series where it did seem like we were getting the old school Littlefinger back, and that was the scene where he planted the scroll in the room and he was looking around the corner. That was old school Littlefinger. That was the stuff I wanted to see. And I always thought that there was going to be a much bigger plan for Littlefinger. And maybe that will be a case in terms of the books, because I think George R. R. Martin has said that there's been a lot of differences between the shows and the books in terms of the characters, but probably the biggest difference he has for plans is with Littlefinger. So maybe that will be different in the book. To me, book Littlefinger, and from what we've seen in earlier seasons, he would have never given anything away like that.
Earlier seasons, he's never been in that position. He's never so arrogantly been in a room where he's predicted every outcome except his own fate.
But like, in scenes where he's vulnerable, he always gets the hell out of there. Like, I think it was series 2.
This
like
is why he
takes his leave. But like, he really wants Winterfell. Okay, he gets Winterfell. Then what? Like,
he goes down south.
He owns the North. He makes profit. He's a businessman. He starts off as a brothel keep, and now he is.
What does Varys say in one of the earlier seasons? Littlefinger started off with no land, no money, no army. He's now got wealth. He's now got money.
Yeah.
What's happening? He gets a third. He had the Knights of the Vale, and he's the Knights of the Vale to give Sansa back the North. He would have took the bannerman of the North to then have gone down south. That's why when John left, he was plotting with Sansa to kind of say, you are the Lady of Winterfell, you are this, because he knows at the time he had her in the pocket, and now he just got caught out, and there's nothing more than his famous quote: "Knowledge is power," and
Does Cersei know that Littlefinger had something to do with Joffrey's death?
No, because Olenna never told Jaime.
Well, like, if Littlefinger always backs the winning side, he has been at Winterfell for 3 seasons now. He's seen all the Starks come back. He knows that Bran has got shit on him, supernatural powers he has no claim over. He knows that I is a murderer, and yes, he's trying to turn that on that, but he knows that he's vulnerable if he stays here. Jon Snow's gone away. Nothing's really happening in the north. What would have been the best strategy for Littlefinger would have been to gone south and tried to cozy up with Cersei or play the winning side that way. Littlefinger's a character that always plays the winning side but works in the shadows, and nothing is happening in the north. Literally,
the reason why
he'd already been south before, though.
I think the reason why he stayed was because he still felt there was a way that he could win Sansa as well. Because his end game isn't just I want to rule the world. It's I want to rule the world and I want either Cat or Sansa at my side.
Don't forget, in season 5, he went down south. He spoke to Cersei and said, "Listen, Sansa Stark is alive. She's cozying up with the Boltons." He was playing games from the very get-go because by having the Boltons versus the Lannisters, we can both arm him to step in and take the lead. He was always playing the game, and he was arguably to me the best player of the Game of Thrones, bar Cersei, and he lost. And he lost at taking it too far. But the way in which he did it as well, that final conversation with Sansa, he thought he'd won her over so much with that playing game thing. That's why he sat there so smugly, and that's why when the shotgun it turned on him, for the first ever time, he was caught off guard, and his accent never changed so quickly.
For a character who is all about power plays and words, to see him babbling on the floor, pleading for his life, throwing his heart out there for the entire room to hear. Big game for the character, especially when the one thing that he can't do in the end is speak because his throat is slit. Like, it was a brilliant poetic end for a character who is so slimy and yet so lovable.
Chris, we love him.
Most of the show,
but it's over.
I've made.
Happy that it happens.
I've made my sad tribute video to Littlefinger. Okay, I've catharsized everything that I felt inside for this character. Okay, so apparently proof doesn't exist in Winterfell.
It does when you're Bran Stark.
Yeah.
Do they know that he's like the fucking three-eyed raven? Anyone else? Like,
yes.
Do they just take?
He's announced it multiple times to everyone.
If they went up to Bran and says, "How do I know you're real?" He would have just told them something. They'd been like, "Oh shit, it is real."
But everyone else just right. Okay, Littlefinger had so many ways out of this situation. He could have said
he didn't have any way out. There was a room full of soldiers.
He could have said
he would have gone away if it weren't for the meddling kids.
That was a great picture, by the way. There's a Scooby-Doo picture out there for anyone who hasn't seen it. He could have said, I came to Jon Snow's aid. I helped you take back Winterfell. I've seated you at Winterfell. I've
because
proved
she asked him to.
This house.
That was his plan. He sold her to the Boltons, so she would come back to him to help her.
But he could have argued all his pros. He could also have said, if things went south.
And she thought, well, you sold me to them, though. He betrayed her. He betrayed her mother. He betrayed her father. He was pleading, and she had him in every corner.
Yeah, but everyone already knew that, and no one ever said anything about it. And it was only
we knew the characters didn't know. I believe it was just Roose Bolton. It was just Roose Bolton and Littlefinger that made that deal, and Littlefinger told Sansa that he thought Ramsay was a nice lad.
Also, why couldn't Littlefinger have pled for trial by combat, which is apparently a still?
Well, I said that, but that's his fault for not being intelligent.
That was
not only that, but trial by combat has been abolished.
No, it's Littlefinger's fault.
He
was going from a script which was written by the showrunners that forgot that only Tyrion's allowed to ask for a trial by combat. Apparently,
No, guys, listen here.
Only one character.
Tommen abolished trial by combat last series.
I thought that was just for the one trial.
Yeah, same.
No, he abolished it completely.
But Littlefinger wasn't in King's Landing to know, and Tommen's dead.
No, scrolls would be sent if the rules change.
Well, I didn't know they send out letters to the Lord. Do we get them at home?
No, they send out the Citadel. Send out letters for everything in those times, don't they? We've seen it in the show.
If the Citadel doesn't know that the Lord Commander has changed over the show's duration, how would they know about the trial by combat? The only person to, I believe, ever use trial by combat is Tyrion. I could be wrong.
Yeah,
but that's because he was the intelligent man. Littlefinger was not thinking, "How do I get out of this trial by combat?" He was thinking, "Oh, I'm gone." Whereas the whole time Tyrion, he was playing games to get to it. Even in Series 1, when in his trial by combat, he confesses, and all of his joke stories when he was younger and stuff. Tyrion was always too intelligent for that. Whereas I don't think Littlefinger's ever been in that situation. Even during the Mountain v the Viper, Littlefinger was on a boat on the way up north, so he wouldn't have known. He wasn't clever enough. Trial by combat is something we know about, but he may not.
Littlefinger should be the most intelligent character, and was for a long time the most
He
intelligent
was.
character out of all the
Now
games.
now his watch has ended.
And
Just like
Protege is
who,
taking over.
the most honourable character died, the most intelligent
the
character
showrunners.
died.
It's the showrunners, man. They just
Do you
they
think
nerfed him.
Do you think George R. R. Martin said, "Listen, guys"?
He doesn't care. He's just making money. He's making his paper.
But he told them he would have told them that it would have been them that killed him. He told the showrunner the plot points and what will happen, who will do it.
Not necessarily, because it's the snowball effect. They've already changed so much in the Sansa and Littlefinger storyline that it's pretty much completely divorced of it. I will say, though, Ian Gillan's performance in this moment, to see him groveling, to see him crying, it was a nice change of pace with the character, and it did hit me in the heartstrings.
His blink. You know, at the minute, the big meme is the guy blinking like that.
Yeah,
Littlefinger just did it better. And the second I saw that, I was just sat there thinking like he's become a meme again. Because the famous tip of the glass, knowledge is power, they were words I lived by. They were words I lived to play with in terms of how I go about my local business. All thanks to Littlefinger. And now I know not to get too caught up in the situation at hand because you end up like him.
But the scene afterwards also struck me as kind of a... I don't know if it was meant to be highlighted as such or not, but you've got Sansa and Arya on the walls of Winterfell looking out, and they sort of like reminiscing about times with their father. Sansa makes a line saying like she passed the sentence, but Arya was the one that swung the sword, and that's completely not what their father said.
Yeah,
no, but they also say the lone wolf dies and the pack survives.
Yeah,
basically,
but
it's better if we do things.
I'm wondering if in that moment Sansa was acknowledging that maybe she isn't a good enough leader for Winterfell because she didn't abide by those rules.
Oh no, well I think I don't think it's that so much, but the other thing
she kind of says to Arya like she says like I passed the sentence, like she was like I did it or something. She said. Now, I can't remember what she says, but she basically says to Arya, well, you did it, like I didn't do it, like I can't take credit for this, like you were the one that killed him, not me. I don't know, I just noticed that because especially with all the talk of their father, that's one of Ned Stark's most famous lines, going back to like the first episode. And
isn't that said when he's beheading the people that...
It's the deserter, isn't it? In episode 1.
It's a bit different, I think, but as well, because they're still like kids and stuff, that had that been Jon Snow, well, not just had there been any of the Stark boys except for Bran, because obviously he can't actually.
Yeah. I mean, Rob did it with the Car Stark.
Yeah,
John did it with Janos Slynt and
the other traitors.
Yeah,
I feel that it was more or less not in a sexist way because they were the girls. Sansa isn't someone that could murder someone. Let's be honest, she doesn't have it in her. Arya does. It makes sense. If it had been Sansa that killed her, people would have moaned as well. That was pointless giving Arya the knife and having that story. Blah blah blah. So.
Well, Arya gave the knife to Sansa last episode, so that's why I thought Sansa would be the one to do it, and it'd be a bit more of a personal act of revenge.
That was her show of trust.
Yeah,
that was all that was for.
But I mean, Arya's essentially this season. Arya's just been chalked up to just an executioner now, just like killing people, and she's like ceased to have any kind of character now, and
because she's no one, Chris.
I know, but no one isn't very interesting, is it? Let's be honest.
Well, we knew this in season 6.
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay, guys, this is it. The fall of the wall. We thought this was going to happen last series, but I'm happy that it. We kind of speculated: will the wall fall, or will the White Walkers make it to the wall? I'm kind of happy it happens now. Basically, the Night King comes in on his now ice dragon, but at the same time, it still breathes fire, blue fire.
Chris summed up Godzilla. It's got Godzilla breath.
It's like the plasma beam.
Basically,
it's fucking amazing. Let's not lie here.
And it takes down the wall. We don't know if Tormund has survived. We don't know if Beric has survived. We haven't seen them die yet. Therefore,
takes down a portion of the wall just big enough to fit his army through. The whole walls is still there, apart from that one bit. But yeah, this was the. I was chatting with George. I think it was pretty much straight after we watched the episode. Has Tormund survived or not? Because we see Tormund and Beric on the wall beforehand. The geography of this isn't very good because we see them running, and I don't know if they. We see a moment where they sort of sit down and like look at the carnage. So I don't know if they made it to a safe part of the wall, but a big chunk of it comes down, and I don't know how much ground they could cover while running. And George, I think you summed it up best. You said. If they are alive, it's bullshit. If they aren't alive, then it's bullshit because they should have killed Tormund off last episode.
Yeah, I mean, it's the whole, when Stannis died, okay, Bren's got the sword out, she'd take revenge, she was going to die, they should have showed it. To have cut away as a water collapsing from an ice dragon, whereas 1 week ago you had him being pulled into the ice underwater by zombies everywhere. If he is to be dead next season, which for the love of it, I really hope he is, then it's a letdown. But there'd be nothing more tragic in a season where they've really played it safe to have kept Tormund alive. You're going to be thinking seriously, like, even if they both wake up, there's an army of White Walkers that's gone past them, unless they've just got up to maybe send a Raven off and say the wall's gone down. I don't know, but they need to be dead for that to have any sort of meaning. Because listen, the day you saw the wall in episode 1 of series 1. No, did you see the wall? No, you didn't see the wall in episode 1, but you know what I mean. The wall was there.
No, you see the wall because the first scene is them going beyond the wall.
It's not walls are made to be broken, but you knew it was going to go. The wall was always going to go down. There's too much history that it's going to go down. And the 7-year build-up to it did work. And they just needed... I mean, everyone would have thought back in day 1, Castle Black would have been the one that went... I mean, if is it in the middle of Castle Black? Obviously, you've had the Wilding attacks, all of it. But to go to Eastwatch, it is the closest entrance point, I guess, to the King's Landing, I believe, and stuff like that. And King's Landing has snow now, so whether they're going to try and walk towards that across 6 episodes rather than 7 years... but it was always going to happen. I've said it. I think I said at the start of the season, the final shot of season 7 will be the wall coming down. It has to be to create the stakes for episode 8. It needs to be the wall coming down. It did do. It didn't disappoint. There's so many ways to do it, but as soon as last week came, you knew it's going to be a dragon that does it, and it was just stunning. I loved it, but it's just that cut away from Tormund. If they've died as well, they deserve better. Game of Thrones has gone soft, and that's been my issue with this series. Mm-hmm. It's gone incredibly soft. I guess you could say the most graphic death of this season was the Frey family dying, which was the opening scene of this season.
Yeah. And I think I said it as well. Like, if Tormund is dead now, they sacrifice like a really poignant sort of like personal character death for a distant and emotionally disconnected one, which is never the way to do things. But as soon as we saw the wall collapse, I was sort of like checking everything off from the script leak or the treatment leak from last year. I was like, we've had Ice Dragon, we've had Littlefinger's death, and now we've had the collapse of the walls. So I guess it was pretty much bang on the money. I guess it was an accurate leak. I don't know what else. The very final thing I'll mention is, if I'm going to give one of my other favourite scenes in this as well, it was seeing the snowfall all across the kingdom, and probably the best song off the entire soundtrack, which was like a slowed down core version of the Game of Thrones theme. Thought that was really effective. Love that song.
Seeing Jaime disappearing off with that as well. Be interesting to see where the future lies for his character and all of the other characters. Funnily enough, this is probably the best time to announce it. We're going to be doing a separate, almost second episode of this for this week, where we're going to be talking about the future of Game of Thrones, what we reckon is going to happen in Series 8. And I guess beyond with that, we may even discuss some of the spin-offs that are still kind of being announced, but haven't had anything tied to them at the moment. But anyway, that was it for this episode of Game of Thrones, at least. And I guess for the series, very quickly, how would you guys rate this series amongst all the other series?
Second worst to 5 for me, I think, as of now. I'm going to have to watch it again, but I think I've never had this with any of the other series, but there were too many sort of like plot inconsistencies and little things that irked me this series that I haven't really had in many other ones. Not as bad as 5. 5 felt really dragged out, and it's probably the most forgettable series out of all of them. But I'd probably have this as my second worst out of the series so far.
I thought it's better than 95% of things on TV. But for Game of Thrones, I believe it was average. And the issue with this is that now we are heading towards the close. You have to kind of have that, not sacrifice a season, but this is what needs to happen by the end of this season. We've got so many less characters and plots now that everything's going to confide in this to build up to have this extravagant finale. In terms of season 8, it's going to be the finale. In terms of rank, I can't really rank them, but I don't want to say second worst. I would, because I think it's great, but it's like when you rank. Well, to me, it's like ranking the Star Wars films. Like, even the one that's second bottom, I'd still happily watch it 10 times. But I feel that it's not the best series, but it's the right series for what's going to come in the future. And maybe looking back after Series 8, there'll be more importance to it. But I still feel that it was a success, and it still got me gripped. It hasn't. There's been some programs where they really lose you in a series, and they just get awful and awful and awful. But with this, it's still
Walking Dead.
Well, I was thinking more like Arrow and all of them ones. We have to watch like eight series to watch 1 week's worth or some nonsense like that. But it's still, to me, the best program on TV at the minute. And
yeah.
I think its reputation is just going to keep growing and growing. And by the time season 8 rolls around, I really hope that it's going to be shot on IMAX. I really hope that it's being shown at the cinema. I'm sure the finale will, but I would just love some kind of big cinema binge for it, or if they're going to show it in weekly, because it deserves to go out like films do. It's going to be an end of an era when it rolls around. Season 7, I think it's been fine. If I was going to rank it, like 8 out of 10, maybe.
I'd probably give it a 7 out of 10. I mean, some of the plot points and some of the episodes were brilliant. The Spoils of War, especially, a phenomenal episode. Up there with the best episodes so far. From all of the points involved. We've seen a few characters go the series, but not really any major players in the game, which was a bit sad, because it would have been nice to see some major characters killed off. It almost feels like they've kind of gone soft on us, but we know next series that half the cast is probably going to be dead by the end of it. But anyway, thank you ever so much for watching, guys, and thank you ever so much for supporting us. Oh, yep.
Can I get questions really quickly? Okay.
Go for it. Go.
Okay, I'm going to have 3 questions for this one. Question 1, do you think that Littlefinger truly loved Sansa? Interesting to hear what people think about that. Question 2, do you like the Dany-Jon relationship? And question 3, let's just have it a general thoughts on the episode. So we'll have 3 because it's the finale. So leave all your answers in the comments down below, and we'll read a couple out at the beginning of our speculation video later this week.
Awesome. Basically, thank you ever so much for everyone watching all of the episodes that we've done so far this series. We've dedicated a lot of time planning and completing the episodes. We've had surprise Georges coming in on some episodes. We've had some episodes which have taken place slightly later than normal, especially for us right now. It's about 1:30 in the morning, and I'm very, very tired. But anyway, thank you ever so much, guys, for watching. I'm not sure what's coming up on the channel. I know there will be a Thoughts on Film coming out this Friday at some point. We have reviews coming out normally on the weekends. I believe this week is...
We need to do one
Logan
for
Lucky.
Logan Lucky. There's American Made. We need to do one for Detroit as well. We've all seen that movie.
Yes,
we're just looking for a time we can all get on together and get a review out for that one. But
brilliant.
yeah,
Well, make sure that you follow us on... Yeah. Make sure you follow us on Facebook at Cinema Savvy. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at Cinema Savvy as well. We also have Instagram. That is cinema_savvy if you guys are interested. And I guess thank you ever so much for everything, guys. And we'll see you in the next speculation thread. Ciao.